All right, so this week, the conversation is about magic, and it's been really interesting because I've been not resisting like thinking about it, but there just hasn't been a lot of time. And there was one point during the week where I was thinking, you know, I might just have to just create this in the moment because I just have no idea, you know, what to say. Hi, Katie. But then it started to flow and ideas started to come. So I was like, and I actually sort of, you know, sat down and thought about it today. And that's when the bulk of what I'm going to say sort of came to me. So it was quite interesting that it was sort of very, very last minute, but it felt like the right stuff came eventually. So the first thing about magic, I'm not talking about conjuring, I'm not talking about tricks, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where magic fits inside of the realm of being a creative. That's what these live chats are all about and geared towards, is people who are creative either professionally or just as a hobby, you know, on an amateur level. That's who these are for. And one of the things, the place that I felt like I needed to start was how important art is to us, because I think sometimes people underestimate, especially how important it is, especially if they don't think something's very good or they don't enjoy it or it feels like populist type of stuff. They don't appreciate the art or the creative process, or because it's dismissed as just entertainment. But the way I see it is, if you think about a world without any form of art, creativity or entertainment, I think that gives some sense of like how important it is. Obviously, I'm not saying it's as important as doctors, nurses, firemen, you know, all that sort of stuff. Those are sort of, you know, they deal with fundamental survival needs. But what art does, what creativity does, is it elevates our thinking above that. Because if you think about it, if you spent a day, even just one day, without experiencing any creativity, art or entertainment, no radio, no podcasts, no TV, no newspapers, no magazines, no no Instagram, no Facebook videos, no Twitter, nothing. Your life would be so mundane and boring, and it would literally just boil down to survival. The only thing you would be able to talk about would be politics and science, and the law. You know what I mean? There would be life would be very dry without the arts. So they're not urgent, as in they're not about survival, but they are important because they elevate society up to a different level, a different understanding of ourselves. So that's why art is important, and that's why we have to have it. So the question is for me is like, why do we have it then? So I thought that beyond ego, so there's a little part of why artists do what they do, which is like purely ego based. So it's about like, how does it make me look, what does it do for me, money, trappings, wealth, well, that's money, beautiful homes, being gifted stuff, all that sort of stuff that goes along with it, and also the praise and the glory of being sort of seen and adored or whatever by large numbers of people, all that sort of stuff. But that sort of feeds the ego. Beyond that, what else is there that takes people towards wanting to be an artist? And I think there's a few things. One of them is that to be an artist, you have to, or you don't have to, but you create a sense of flow. You create flow, the flow experience. So when I say flow, I'm talking about, that thing where you get into a zone where you're so clear about what you're creating, ideas start to come to you, there's an ease to what you're doing. There's a couple of guys who wrote a book called Stealing Fire. Their names are Jamie Wheel and Stephen Kotler, I think. It's a really interesting book. It's a bit scientific. It's not necessarily a book that lends itself to artists reading it, but it's very interesting in the sense that they describe flow as STER, stir. So selflessness. So you lose a sense of who you are. Timelessness, obviously that's self-explanatory. Effortlessness and richness. So when you create, you get access to that flow. The other thing is when you create, you are channeling universal energy, the energy of the universe. I know this is like sort of highfalutin big ideas, but that's basically what's going on. Because when you create, you're creating something out of nothing. Say you were to sit down and write a book. When you sit down, there is no book. And then you start to plan it out and you start to get structure. You start to, decide what you want to have in each chapter. And suddenly from nowhere, there is something. From nothing there is something. There's this book starting to take shape, or a painting, or a photograph, or some stand-up. To me, that's magic, and that's what I want to, that's really what I want to talk about, because creating something from nothing is magic. I remember being on this course talking about stand-up and what it is I really like about it, and I had this sort of, I don't know, like insight or moment of clarity or whatever, where I realised that being on stage, you look at an empty stage where there's about to be some stand-up, and all there is a microphone and an expectant audience looking at the stage. And I suddenly realised that what stand-up comedians are doing is conjuring. They are making something out of nothing. All I've got is me and what's in my head and what will flow through me, improvised moments and stuff like that. It's magic. And then I realised all artists are creating magic. All artists are taking nothing and turning it into something. An artist taking a blank canvas, a play taking a blank stage, even a photographer taking a blank SD card and filling it with art. Jung would say that when you create, you're accessing the collective unconscious. Yeah, sure. I don't know what to call. I'm using this generic blanket term, universal energy, universal wisdom, or whatever. I don't know what's out there. I don't know where this stuff comes from. But yeah, collective unconscious, do you think? Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah, there's this. Sometimes I think about this infinite field of possibility where all things are possible and all things can come from, including creative people's ideas. So artists are all creating something from nothing. All art is magic. And if you think about it, that's how the universe was made. The universe, first there was nothing, and then there was the universe, the Big Bang, and then the universe got created from that. So basically, creativity is giving us access to the power of gods. What? So that's basically what we're doing as artists. I know this sounds very grand. And when most of the time artists are being forced to think about, things that are lower down on that, hierarchy of needs that Maslow told us about, it seems like the idea of like we're accessing godly energy seems like ridiculous. I'm trying to feed my kids or whatever, or I'm just trying to get some stage time, or I'm just trying to paint a painting and get it sold or whatever. But actually that's what we're doing. I don't mean God as in Christian God. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that thing that we don't actually know what it is and really don't have any name for, but we sort of put our own projections onto. So I'm going to call it the universe, I'm going to call it God or whatever. But that's what we're accessing as creatives. We're accessing God energy. And it's not like this isn't my thought. This is already out there. The Christians say this. I'm not a Christian, but the Christians say this. I think I wrote it down. It's in Psalm 8:26. God says, you are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. So the Christian, so that's not an idea that's necessarily promoted by the Christian faith very often, because more they want to almost like infantilize themselves a little bit by saying they're children of God. But actually, in one of these Psalms, God is saying, you are gods. You have the creative potential that I have. I'm making worlds, you can make worlds, because whenever someone creative creates something, they're making a world. It might be through a poem, it might be, do you know what I mean? A world is being created that didn't exist before. Do we create from nothing, or are we skilled reimagining the world around us? Well, when I say creating from nothing, yes, you're reimagining the world around you. Maybe you're getting ideas from that infinite field of possibility, but until you commit that to some material thing, it doesn't exist. So the nothing to something is when you actually commit it to something. That's the real sort of demonstration of the nothing into something, is when that painting exists, or that book exists, or that stage show exists. So also in a conversation with God, Neil Donald Walsh, I think his name is, in the final book, the final sort of, I don't know, last third of the book or whatever, he talks about this very thing. So if you don't know Conversation with God, it's about this guy who's like really frustrated with his life, who's just all going to shit basically, and so he wanted to talk to God, like, why is my life so shit? And so he basically started dictating questions. He started writing down questions and dictating the answers that he felt he was receiving, and from that came this Conversation with God series of books. In the last book, he talks about how God tells him that we're all kings and queens. We are, awesome creators. Christians say, like, we've been made in God's image. We interpret that sometimes as childlike, but actually we might be as infinite and have as much creative potential as God. We can create worlds. And sometimes I wonder if the world, if the universe is kind of holographic in the sense that, like, in each of us is a universe, and in each cell of us is a universe, and in that universe is an individual trying to create or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's some theory that will tie it all together, but we're creating worlds with the work that we do. An example of this, if you want like a more sort of practical, tangible example, is, and again, Game of Thrones fans out there, when George R.R. Martin conceived the books, what he did was he had little figures to represent all the different houses and all the different characters, so that he could basically play out the dynamic between all these houses and all these people with their different interests and different needs and different desires. So that when he came to writing the book, he would have just such a fully formed world that it's mind-blowing in a way. I've just started watching Game of Thrones from the beginning, and my mind is blown by how much backstory there is on top of the story that's currently there, like, to do with characters that you're already seeing. There's kings and other people, and like, I can't even keep up. But that is because he created an entire world. So this is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about some airy-fairy thing like, oh yeah, we can travel and like do LSD and like fly away. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking really fundamentally. You're creating a world. And this is what it looks like. It looks like pieces on a thing, and Daenerys goes here, and Sansa says that, and Cersei says that. I couldn't tell the difference between Cersei and Sansa at first. I thought they were the same person. Not to look at, but the names. Anyways, your art is an artifact telling... In fact, before I go on to that point, let me just see what everyone's been saying. So, we could talk so much about creativity in the image of God. You might be interested in Rosemary Radford Reuther's book, God and Gaia. She does an amazing takedown of Christianity, God, and patriarchy. I'm not coming at it from that perspective. I'm sure I'm not into the politics of religion or anything like that, and that's not where I'm talking from as well. I'm talking more. That's why I'm using God, universe, infinite field of possibility, using it all interchangeably, because I'm not talking from a religious perspective. I'm not interested really. Not that it's not interesting, but I'm not interested in taking down anybody, and even patriarchy, even Christianity. That's not sort of where I'm coming from. But thank you for throwing that into the conversation. Kevin says, fundamentally, every decision for every word, movement, idea we come up with comes from nothing. Absolutely. So although I agree with you, should the idea not be restricted to art? Say some more on that, Kevin. I don't understand. Her basic criticism is that the God we worship deeply affects the world we create around us. Yeah, but we're talking Christian God here, and that's not where I'm coming from. But I think you've got that. So what I was going to say was, your art is an artifact of... it's an artifact telling people about the wonders of the world, or the wonders of the universe, the wonders of what is out there. So it's almost like your art is hey Marshall, how you doing? Cool. It's almost like your art is like a precious artifact. Like when they used to go and raid the tombs or whatever and come back with all these precious things from sort of the ancient Egyptians. That's what your art is you're letting the world know about the awesomeness of the universe through that thing. I'm not talking about sort of, like paintings or whatever that sell for millions and millions of pounds. I'm saying, even if you wrote a stupid limerick, if you wrote a poem, if you took a photograph or whatever, that's all it is. It's nothing grander. It doesn't have to be as grand as things that are, you know, experienced by everybody. Even if it's something that one person experiences, you've brought something back from the front to say, there, you would not believe what's on the other side of this. So that's the byproduct of what we create. That's almost what it stands for. It's almost like a stand for something. And I think it's hey, wax pusher, hello. And I think it's really important that artists spend more time living in the realm of we're gods than in the, obviously I don't mean that in an arrogance kind of way. I'm not talking about, you know, in a Kanye kind of way. I hate to use him as an example because that's not really fair, because he is actually genuinely good at what he does. But what I'm really saying is, like, it's not about you. You're just the filter through which it comes. It's so if you wear this godliness, you wear it with an ease that's about living that truth, living the possibility that you're bigger than just the small game that you've been playing. Because a lot of artists great artists as well, live in doubt and it's not going to work out. And, you know, I was talking about this last week, the inner critic that constantly is feeding us these ideas that we're not enough, that it's not going to work out, all the rest of it. We as artists, I think, need to spend more time out in the domain of we're godly and can create and are creating worlds and bringing these artifacts back for people. Disagree that our ideas come from nothing. We are fundamentally social beings. Let me see what I can say about that. When I say nothing, obviously, you know, if you're saying we're social beings, you're basically saying that, yeah, people influence us. Of course, yes, that's right. But what I'm saying is physically nothing exists. Physically there is no book. Physically there is no photo. Physically there is no, you know, whatever, play, and then something comes from it. Isn't it an automatic process? So how would one put more effort into it? Put more effort into it. Isn't it an automatic process? How would one put more effort into it? Kevin, if you're talking about the creative process, then I would say, then I'm going to come to this actually. Give me a second, Kevin, because I'm actually going to come to this, and I hope that will answer that point that you're making. Steve, thank you. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Hello, Mandy. All right, let me move on because I'm going to get to Kevin's to address Kevin's point as well. Basically, you know, where I got to is I was just saying that artists need to spend a little bit more time in the accepting our awesomeness rather than living in the doubt. Doubt is very human, but you see how it, like the Greeks, they had their mythology, and well, the Romans as well. That mythology, how man was battling with the gods and that sort of relationship, that's supposed to be an analogy for man, as in we both coexist as gods and men. And I think we have forgotten that. The mythology was, they knew that it was what's the word, when allegorical. They were trying to say that within each of us is the experience of God and the experience of being a man, that we are Jason Silver said the other day, I was watching a video of his, and he said that it's really difficult to reconcile the fact that we are gods and we're worms, we're gonna just die. But we can still just make the most of the godliness. Don't have to just like diminish it just because we know that we are physically finite. Right? So then the other thing is as well, we have to trust, we have to trust that each of us has our own path to this place of our own sort of creative awesomeness. Hey, Dagenham and Proud, what up? Sorry that I'm running with your ideas. I tend to default to thoughts towards theological and philosophical. Yes, I can see that, and I'm resisting it. I'm not going to get drawn into that, not because they're not interesting, but that's not where I'm coming from. We have to trust, is the thought that I was on, so let me just get back to that. We have to trust that our own path, that there is a path for us to our own creative awesomeness, and that each one of us has a different one. What I've noticed is when I've been to panels where people are, people who are established in their industries, they often get asked during the Q&A, like, how did you get started? As though they're going to give the person that asked the question a roadmap of how to become Aaron Sorkin or whoever it is that's on the panel. And it's like every time, even if I go to 100 panels with 100 different writers, every time they're going to say something different. One is going to be like, I started in a writer's room. One is going to be like, oh, I was making YouTube videos. One is going to be, I did an MA. So know that everyone's path to this place of like creative awesomeness is different. I went to LA in 2013 and I stayed for 6 months initially, and what I thought was really interesting, I can say this in hindsight, I didn't realize at the time, is that I went primarily, with the mind of like finding acting work, and everyone I encountered, every other actor, especially if they weren't quite succeeding in the way they wanted to be, hey Delta Mode, I'm so sorry I can't remember your name, but yeah, everyone I encountered, they were telling me how to do being in LA. They were like, you've got to do this, you've got to get these headshots, you've got to, blah, blah, blah. Everyone had this list of things that you're supposed to do. And so I sort of ran around almost like a sort of crazy thing, like for the first, first few months really, of like doing all the things that everyone said that I was supposed to do. And it was exhausting and it was expensive as well. And it was only after probably a couple of years of, going backwards and forwards that I realised, oh, wait, I have to find my own way of being in LA. Because the thing is, the only source of information these people had for what they were saying to me is probably what they were told when they first got there. And even though it wasn't working, they were still working for them, they were still telling me to do it. And it took a long time, basically, of finding and trusting myself to see, oh, I've got to find my own path in all of this. This is not about just doing what's already been done, treading an already well-beaten path, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to lead to success. Like I said to you, these writers have all got their own different path to their own success. Same with every one of us who's like taking on this like artistic or creative pursuit. We've all got our own path that we're going to walk. Even like getting into comedy, there'll be some people who they'll have been making YouTube videos. Some people would have been on the circuit for years. Craig Ferguson was a punk poet or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Everyone comes at it from a different place. So you have to trust that your place in all of this is yours, and you have to, or not you have to, if you find and trust, if you trust your instincts to find that path, then the path will open up for you. Hey, Macca 1916. I find the really curious side of creativity, is not so much how people get started, but why some things people create take off, go viral, and others don't. Gosh, that's a whole other conversation, Steve. I have no idea. But maybe I should put some thought to it and figure out a talk I can do about that. Kevin says, plus taking the risk of potentially losing a stable life for the dream of making it. It is a huge risk. But you've got to trust that it's the risk that is there for you to take. When I had a whole other career before I went into being a performer. I had a stable job. I was earning good money, and I've never been so broke as when I first started acting. I've never had less money in my life other than as a child. I was literally checking the price of everything when I was buying it. I remember like a friend had a birthday drinks, and I was like, shit, I really want to go, but I literally can't afford to buy drinks at this place. The drinks were £7 each, which nowadays, a £7 cocktail, no, it's vodka and tonic or something actually. Nowadays, maybe, if you go to a fancy bar, maybe that's normal or whatever. But I literally had to work out, I couldn't buy anybody drinks, and I could only have 4 drinks, and then I had to tap out because that's how little money I had. But that was but I never for a moment, even though I had no money, not necessarily a clear way of knowing how I was going to get money, never did I ever think I'm on the wrong path, I've done this wrong. What am I saying? That's a lie. I have doubted myself, but I've never doubted myself enough to get off the path. There's always been a part of me, a fundamental truth inside of me that's gone, this is the way you're going now. It's too late to turn back. I feel everybody has a path to follow, but along the way stuff happens and changes your path. At first I trained to be an artist, but stuff happens like kids. Stuff does happen like kids and other things. That's not to say that just because you set out and you go, that's where I'm supposed to go. What I'm saying is listen to your instincts always. Don't just listen once at the beginning and go, I'm supposed to be an artist, and then never listen to your instincts again. Your instincts told you, kids is what's next for me. And maybe I can, see you said, but I still do art. And maybe I can find a way to have the kids and the art sit side by side without it being a problem. One day when the calling comes, if you listen to your instincts, it'll let you know. It's harder when you're a single parent and have the responsibility of kids. Mate, let's not even go down that road, because, yes, an artistic life it can be a tricky one, a challenging one where you've got to balance lots of different commitments and needs and challenges. So no doubt. But you know, as I said last week, there's no excuses. You've got a blind pianist in Stevie Wonder. You've got a, you know, painter painting with just his left foot because that's all he can move. You've got, you know, people making films on iPhones. You know, when filmmakers other filmmakers complain that they don't have resources, so they don't start. So whatever your circumstances, and everyone's got circumstances, so whatever your circumstances, either they become the excuses or they just become circumstances that you have to navigate. Is money the judge and jury as to our creative path? Absolutely not. I will not hear of it. Is money the judge and jury? No. But like I just said to you, I had no money, but I was still pursuing that goal, that dream. So I would say money is helpful. Yeah, of course, you want to take care of like some basic needs. I wrote this out a second ago. It's, you know, I'm sure you know about this, Steve, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So this is going to be backwards for you guys, but you know, the fundamental needs, physiological needs like food, water, warmth, stuff like that. Once that's taken care of, you move up the hierarchy. So the next one is safety, so like security and stuff like that. Belonging and love, so intimate relationships, esteem, prestige, feeling accomplished, and then at the top is self-actualization, and that includes like creative pursuits. So, you know, I don't know what my point is, but money, I mean, I don't know if money really sort of fits into that thing, because, you know, there's some people who've got loads of money and they still make excuses as to why they haven't started the thing that they said they were going to do. And there's some people with nothing who just crack on, because either you let those circumstances get in the way or you don't. End of. The other thing is as well, we must make sure, in terms of, I'm talking now specifically about finding your path, we must not, no, there's no must or must not. It is good for us not to copy, because as soon as you copy, you've become unoriginal. You've immediately become unoriginal, because you are a unique filter. Because the way I see it is, ideas are out there and they come through us. They're not of us, they're through us. You're a conduit, you're a filter, and that's why they come out differently, is because your filter is different from somebody else's, and that filter gets created out of the life you've lived, the people you've experienced, things that you've been through, all the rest of it. And so if you start to copy somebody else, I feel like it almost blocks the filter and stops that great idea coming through as purely and cleanly through your filter as it could, because you've cluttered it up with thinkings. Because deciding to copy someone is a thinkings thing. It's not an authentic expression. It's if I do this, it worked for them, so if I copy them, then it'll work. So yeah, copying is not a good idea. Oscar Wilde said, "Be yourself. Everybody else is already taken." I think that's a great quote, and I sort of try and remind myself of that sometimes, because my tendency is sometimes to do that, to see, oh, that worked for them, let me try that. In the way they did it as well. Even with this talk, I watch a lot of Jason Silver, and I would highly recommend him. He's a great sort of orator and you know, sort of free thinker who, you know, commits his ideas to video. But he's got a particular style, and you know, there is a temptation for me going, he's so popular, that's working, let me try and do let me try and do these talks his way, but I can't. I've got to do them this way, because if I got to walk my own talk, and B, this is how I got to do it. This is the way I've got to do it. This is what works for me. We often tell ourselves, like, sometimes we talk about the things we should do in terms of being an artist, and finding our truth, as it were. And I think we should take should I think we should take, I just said should. Yeah, I think we need to take should out of the equation, because there's no should. He's pretty good looking, Kevin. There's no should about being an artist. There's you do it or you don't do it. You choose to do that or you choose not to do that. There's no correct path. There's no should. I like what Anthony Robbins said, is like people should too much, you know, next thing you know you're shoulding all over yourself. So take the should out of the equation. It's just be authentic. Just be it. Don't plan to be it tomorrow. Be it now. What you're saying makes me think of a debtor, hit or miss. Oh, I don't know what that is. My biggest struggle is thinking that anyone would want to listen to me watch my art. You know, the thing is, Steve, is whether you believe that or you do not believe that, that is gonna become true. So if you believe nobody wants to listen, then that becomes true. If you believe people want to listen, all it takes is one person to be inspired. You never know what they're gonna go off to do. Or be intrigued, or spark curiosity in somebody, that they go off and do something that really changes their life. It doesn't matter about quantity, it's just quality of the conversation that you're going to put into the world. If you build it, they will come. Field of dreams. I'm getting quotes from everywhere today. Talking about Jason Silva, I think he's a really good example of the should mentality. Is that he's a sort of American Venezuelan guy. He started out as a TV presenter, and he ended up, I can't remember the name of the channel, but he ended up sort of being a presenter on I think he did like entertainment news and stuff like that. If you see the videos that he does now, you'll know how far like that type of stuff is from what he's doing now. And he just was not finding it fulfilling, so he stopped doing it. And he, from a teenager, he'd always had these sort of rants, and he'd sort of, you know, have these philosophical rants, and people were like, oh, you should film that. And he started to film them, he started to put them online, and, you know, they started to get just more and more and more and more popular. And to the point where now he's just finished doing a speaking tour. He speaks all over the world. His videos get millions of hits. You know, he's created, and he's done it all online, really. The only thing, I mean, he does do TV still, but it's more on his own terms, I think. But most of his traction is online. And here's an example of how you think you should be doing one thing, but when you get in alignment with your truth, because he said he used to do these rants just to clear his mind and just like help for his own sanity. He just needed to get these thoughts out into the world. So he's an example of going from should to just getting in touch with what's his truth. You know, what is his path? What's the unique path for him? And it turned out to be just committing what he was already doing to video. Rumi says, what you are seeking is seeking you. So, you know, there's maybe people have this idea that you've got to search and search and search for that thing, but it's already there. It's waiting for you. That your sort of authentic truth, your you is already there waiting for you. And also another quote that I actually saw on Jason Silva's page as well. It said, trust the magic is always there. Oh no, that's me, I wrote that. No, the quote is, somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known. So we got to be like antenna, like waiting for these fantastic ideas to come through our unique filter. Because that's in Elizabeth Gilbert's book, not in Eat, Pray, Love, in Big Magic, which is another book I would recommend for any artists or people, you know, struggling with finding a bit of lightness around their creativity. She talks about how ideas are just out there as entities, like as though they're actual things. And I really believe that. I think they're all just floating around waiting for the right home. Yeats said, the world is full of magic things patiently waiting for our senses to grow sharp. I think that's exactly right. I think ideas are just waiting there, just going, and it's not highfalutin ideas. It can be jokes, it can be poems, it could be an idea for an app, it could be anything. I think they're all out there, and we have to attune ourselves to that thing. We have to allow our senses to grow sharp so that we can pull down these ideas through us. Elizabeth Gilbert, in one of her TED Talks, she talks about this poet who sees her poems coming, or this one particular poem, she saw it coming as a dark cloud off into the distance, and she had to run inside, get a piece of paper and a pen to write it down, and it came out backwards because she just about caught it, like she was trying to hold on to a beast that was trying to get away, and just grabbed hold of the tail and just has to pull it back in. That sounds like a big grand idea, but that can be people's relationship with ideas. I remember when I wrote Brit I Am, which is a poem I turned into a film, and it came. I didn't sit down and think I want to write a poem called Brit I Am. I didn't even know it was going to be called that. But what happened is I was in bed, and this verse came to me, and so I have a little pile of post-it notes by my bed, just in case we're writing jokes, any ideas down. So I wrote it down, went back, tried to go back to sleep, and then another verse came, and another, and another, and another, and it got to the point, I remember it was 7 verses came, and I was like, can you just stop? You know what I mean? But I just couldn't. Once the idea started to come out, it was just like, I can't. All right, okay, I'm in. Write it down. There's a great song by Jill Scott called And I Heard, and she said that song came to her in the same way. It's such a beautiful song. If you get a chance after this, look it up on Spotify or whatever, especially the live version is amazing. It's called And I Heard, and it's phenomenal. And she said it came to her in exactly that same way. She's just channeling through her, dictating what was coming to her. Yeah. Let me just go back and see your comments. Okay, I've read that one. Okay, agreed. I had an amazing comment on a video today which made me realise I have a responsibility for the quality of content my output as people are watching. Exactly! How do you stop comparing yourself to others and their achievement, career goals, timescales? They had an agent. We're doing TV by this point. Lydia, do yourself a favour and just don't. Because the only person you're in competition with is who you were yesterday. Matthew McConaughey said that when he accepted his Oscar for what's that film called? Dallas Buyers Club. It might be worth having a look at some books that are about mental mastery. I'm not talking about controlling the mind, because I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for us, but ones that can just give you a sense of seeing your mind at work, because all those concerns about comparison with your peers and stuff like that, they all come from the mind. They're not of the heart or the gut. They're not instinctive thoughts. They're monkey mind chatter that is there to disable us. If you have a look at my last video, it's on YouTube, about criticism. I talk a little bit about the inner critic and how its job is there to undermine us, not because it wants to undermine us, but because it wants us to survive by not putting ourselves out. And so every time your mind strikes up this conversation, this one-way conversation with itself about, oh, but they've got an agent and they're doing really well, I should be such and such, I should be at such and such point in my career by now, why aren't I doing well? That is just your monkey mind, which has a life all of its own, doesn't even need you for its interaction. It's purely its job is just to keep chatting shit, basically. You can override that. You don't have to buy into what it's saying. Give yourself a little bit of distance from it and just give yourself a break. There's no place you're meant to be with your career. You're doing just fine. They're good quotes, right? It's weird how they all just came like as I was like through the week, and like today I've just been like remembering stuff, and yeah, it was quite magical because this conversation didn't exist until like a couple of hours ago, and the quotes started to come. So I trust that my antenna was acutely sort of tuned in to bring these quotes down to you. Why people don't take risks is genius. I think your comments about why people don't take risks is genius level inspiration. Well, thank you for saying that, Steve, but I think these ideas are just out there. I'm just the filter here. Genuinely, I'm not saying that to be like fake humble or whatever, but I am collecting ideas, and I guess I make sense of them in a way in my own mind and then share them with you. So I'm the unique filter, but the information, the ideas are already out there. No worries, Lydia. So I think the fundamental key, I'm going to go long on this. Give me 10 more minutes, guys, but just bear with me, because like I've really enjoyed speaking to your questions as well, rather than just like, you know, one way, you know, conversation. So thank you for the questions, but I'm gonna just go a little bit over the 45 minutes I thought it was gonna be, but stick with it. So how to be an authentic artist, because that's the key. Oh, bless you, whoever did those hearts, thank you. That's the key is, see a wax pusher, but if you want to catch the end of it, then I'll stick it on YouTube anyway, so don't worry about it. But have a lovely Christmas, and I will see you soon. How to be an authentic artist, because being authentic is basically clearing your filter the best you can. It's like that little thing that you put in the kitchen sink. It's like when that hasn't got all gunk and muck in it, the water flows. When it does, it doesn't flow. So for you to get this universal awesomeness to flow through you, you need to get your filter clear. How do you do that? You let yourself off the hook. You let go of some of them stories that you've been telling yourself about yourself, or that your monkey mind has been telling you about yourself, that you actually have believed. If I don't have money, I can't do this. If I don't have these things, I'm too old. This never happens for black people. You know, whatever the story you're telling yourself might be, get all that off the table and just see what's really there. See who you really are. Because for every circumstance you've said is a problem, there is someone that has overcome it. So we can't be making excuses based on our circumstances. Either do it or don't do it. If you want to use your excuses, then this life is not for you. Then there's no judgment in that. It just isn't for you. So you have to get to know yourself. You have to give yourself the conditions to be able to hear the universe good and clear. You have to be able to... And getting rid of your stories is a way of doing that. I think loosening the grip on the idea that your happiness is external, because your joy is another way for this universal awesomeness, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, to filter through you. Your joy is a way of attracting that to you. So loosening your grip on the idea that your happiness is external to you. This idea that if I have such and such, I'll be happy. If I get that TV role, if that gallery hangs my painting, if I reach 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, if your happiness is dependent on those things, then you have given so much power to things external to you, outside of your control. If you can generate your own happiness, then you've already taken the power away from all of those things. And look, at the end of the day, if we're gods, then and have this creative power of gods, then why not start with the most important thing and create your own happiness? Because the moment you have the happiness, you will attract so much more and so much better to you. Good things get attracted to good people. So create joy in an empowering way. Don't get into addictive stuff like overeating and, you know, drink and all the rest. I'm not saying don't eat or drink, but don't use that as the way to create your joy. Trust your path. Trust your path. Yes, trust your path, because this is something I find very difficult, is like when we choose our path of how we think we're going to get to the thing that we want. Say, for example, it is like, I don't know, a role in a TV show. We think of the path as being linear. I want to go from here, not having the role in the TV show, to there, having the role in the TV show. But that definition of that path is based only on what you know. That's all based on the known. If you allow the universe to guide you, it may take you on a completely different route, a circuitous route that takes you through some weird shit and some maybe difficulties, some challenges, some good stuff too. Meet people that you're like, I don't like that person, or meet people that you do like, all in service of giving you all these amazing skills that you didn't know you needed to be able to make that role in that TV show the biggest, best opportunity you could possibly have. If you take your route linearly, you don't get to have all those experiences. Let the universe guide you, because if the universe guides you, you've got access to the entire wisdom of the universe guiding your path, as opposed to just what you know. I saw a meme the other day that I thought was quite cool. It was a Christian thing. You know how Christians say, Jesus, take the wheel. It's like, it's out of my hands. You're in charge, God, type of thing. And the meme said, Jesus, take the wheel. and Jesus, and then it says Jesus. Okay, so Jesus says okay, and then it says also me. Why are we going this way? And I think that's exactly what people do. Is they go, oh, it's out of my hands. I'm going to let the universe guide me, and then the universe takes you in a way that you don't expect. You're like, what the fuck? I want to go over there. Why are you taking me over there? You know. So we have to trust that we have to trust that the universe is on our side. Every day, we have to trust that the universe is on our side. Universe, Jesus, God, universal creative awesomeness, take the wheel. Thank you, Steve. So I'm gonna leave you with one last thing. Because that point that I just made took me to that Marianne Williamson quote, and I just thought I was gonna quote, just read to you a little bit of it, and then I ended up reading more of it, and I was like, this is awesome, and it speaks exactly to what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to end this live chat with this, because I think this pretty much sums up everything that I've been saying. So I think you know this quote, maybe you don't know it in its entirety, so I've written it out. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God, interchange whatever word you need, that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So if you're wondering what gift you can put into the world, what your art serves, what purpose your art serves, maybe you can give the world, before you shuffle off this mortal coil, maybe what you can give the world is your awesomeness. Exhausted. That's it. Thank you very much, Steve. A Merry Christmas to you too. So guys, thanks Marshall, thank you for being here as well. Just to let you know, next week is going to be kind of, I thought I would do like a little open house thing. Maybe I'll do it on Saturday rather than Sunday, because I think Sunday is Christmas Eve. I might do it a bit earlier in the day as well. So how you guys were sort of making comments and asking questions and stuff like that, I'm going to just do a sort of, open floor. So if people want to just chip in with stuff, then feel free to do that. I'm not going to have a topic next week, but in the new year, I'm going to be talking about motivation and inspiration, because it's the new year, right? And that's what everyone does, is we go, it's the new year, so we have to be thinking in those terms. I'm going to make it this year. This year it's going to be my year. So I'm maybe going to have a bigger conversation about motivation and inspiration. But until then, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for just providing your listening and your attention. It's been really appreciated, and I'm really glad that I could put this into the world. So thank you. And if I don't see you before Christmas or hear from you before Christmas, have a lovely Christmas, and yeah, I'll see you on the other side. Thanks guys.